Hi, conductor fans. We just want to give a heads up that this episode contains some explicit verbiage. If you have young listeners around, put in some headphones. Thank you.
Welcome back to part 2.
Hi, and welcome to Conductor, where we are two sisters on a mission to amplify women's voices on the podium.
Join us as we interview leaders in the field of choral music, share resources, and build a community for current and future teacher conductors, all while exploring the gender divide. I'm Kira Starr.
And I'm McKenna Stenson, and we are
Conductor. You both have mentioned this kind of recurring reflection that you clearly have in your organization that is constant, and this checking in with one another. And I think that's also a huge part of this, because so many people are like, I mean, I did this as a high school teacher. I was like, all right, kids, like write your reflection of the concert. Like we do it 4 times a year. Reflect. But if you don't build that in continuously, and as an organization especially, the healthiness goes away and it becomes a stressful environment where you're like, oh, well, I'm receiving feedback or I'm giving feedback and I don't feel comfortable saying what I actually want to say. And I think the way that you all are operating is the ideal. I mean, it's what everybody is hoping for. And as someone who has worked in organizations where they're not the one in charge or been the one in charge, like that is how we move forward. And I do think that's the best thing to do. I mean, consistency is everything. And if it's just a part of your culture to be like, hey, that was weird. That didn't go super well. And especially post concert. I mean, it's hard. It's over. It's so easy to just move on and start learning the new repertoire and forget about what happened. And that's kind of how repetition in a bad way occurs. So I love that you do that.
That this culture of that we have created in our organization, we identify when a team member doesn't fit immediately, and we like just went through this, and we always go with like the benefit of the doubt, like, okay, let's just try it. Let's just try again. But it's just sooner or later, it just comes up and it just ends up being really clear that it's not a good fit. And because it becomes so obvious that we just can't neglect it anymore, it is easier to be like, it just doesn't work.
I was having conversations with a colleague this weekend, and this conversation, I'm just about to send it to them, like as soon as we're done, because the clearest kind is so important. And just because someone is effective at their job doesn't mean that they're the right fit for the team. Somebody can be really good at the thing that they do, but that doesn't mean that it's necessarily the right fit for your organization. That doesn't mean that either is bad, but the clearest kind, because otherwise, it gets in the water. And all of a sudden, the currents are rocky versus smooth, not by anyone's intention necessarily, but just because maybe that's a round peg, square hole.
And meanwhile, it affects the singers.
Yeah. We had a staff member, like in paper, oh my gosh, like better than all of us, and it was just not a good fit. It was just not, and I felt it in my gut, and I ignored my gut, and then I saw it with my eyes, and I was like, okay. So we started having conversations. This is the feedback. And I just opened the floor for an avalanche of problems I know it was going to come my way, but I just kind of armed myself with like protection. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to receive all the criticism in the world for having this person as part of the team. And I had to do major damage control over the decision, but it was just so clear that that person needed to go, even if she had all the books written and published and all of the things, and I think it was clear for her, because what I try to do is like, I don't want to surprise anybody. It's like, as soon as it happens, it is addressed. Like, I don't wait for 3 strikes or anything like that. It's like, oh, that did not work. I'll tell you right away, like, that didn't work. So this is what we need to do. And we have reflection time every week as a staff. On a Fridays, we're like, okay, let's reflect on the week, But also, like, as soon as something doesn't fit or doesn't work really well, it is addressed. So we don't like collect problems and then bring a bunch of problems that are not relevant, and then we just react again. We just react into like something that is not. So it's more of a like, if it happens, it is addressed, and we addressed it for a year and a half, and then it was obviously not going to work. So that person is not here, and now we have the best person on earth because we opened the space for that person to come to our organization.
I mean, sometimes conversations are hard, and sometimes it's just not the right fit, and that's true for every field. And we work in one that's full of musicians, when we are usually emotional people. So I feel like it's even more difficult. But I think that what you just said is really poignant, and it's important to trust your gut. And it's also important to be who you are and say, these are my expectations, and this isn't working, and that's okay.
I think we turn from snowflake into snowball by not addressing problems in real time. And I know that when I've worked in situations, and I've seen the stress expand and then one day explode. It's been from the opposite approach from what you just described.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was gonna touch on, because that is one thing I've shared with Marcela that I really appreciate about her as a leader, is that, I mean, and she'll call me on things. I am not perfect. She will tell you
She's perfect.
I make many, many mistakes, and she will call me on it. And but right away, and in a kind way, and in the way we've talked about, which is like, okay, let's move on. Like, let's fix this. And so it's made me want to stick around, not that I would ever leave you, but yeah. And it is hard. And it's something that she has been leading by example. And now that I have people that I need to address things with sometimes, because everyone makes mistakes, small or big, no matter what, but it's all for the good of the girls. And there are no surprises here at TGC unless they're good surprises. So I know where I stand with Marcela, and so I strive to make sure that whoever my staff are, they know where they stand with me, and that it's always something of, let's do this for the girls and move on.
I love that. I love that so much. I hope to always encounter people like you as my superiors and my colleagues for the rest of my life. And I hope that for all of us. And also, one thing that I've noticed just with you two, and I know you're friends, so that is emphasized, but there's clearly just a respect and a love between you, and a constant affirmation. And I think that even if you're not best friends with your colleague, that goes such a long way, just to be like, hey, you did a really great job leading that rehearsal today. And I'm trying to be more active in doing that to the people around me, because it feels great to receive it, and it feels great to give it. And I think McKenna and I, in starting this podcast and forever for the rest of our lives, when people are like, oh, so so you guys do the same, like you're doing the same thing. And I'm like, yeah, and it's great. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, like, how does that work? I'm like, it's the best thing ever, because we just have somebody who we, just like you two, can be like, hey, what do you think about this? Or like, if you were in this situation, what would you do? I mean, it's just, it's so helpful. And I'm like forever grateful that we were born into this family and have each other, because it makes life easier. And there is someone who constantly can be like, you're amazing.
Like in those moments, it's like, well, let's reflect. Let's ask questions about it. Or Kira will just tell me like, McKenna, you need to be direct. And I feel like iron sharpens iron. And that's what I think this conversation is just reinforcing, that when we bring our best selves to the table, we want that from others, that the results are limitless.
And now a quick word from our sponsors. This season, we are featuring a fierce lineup of women composers found in the Music Spoke marketplace. At Music Spoke, composers receive the majority of the proceeds from sales, retain control over their own works, and all scores are available immediately as digital downloads. At Music Spoke, they do not simply publish pieces of music. They find composers and give them the tools and freedom to promote themselves. just heard Fecit Potentiam by Nicola Porpora, arranged by Christina McMullen. Check out her works today on musicspoke.com and conducther.com/sponsors.
Hey everyone, Gloria here from Call Time Clothing, back again to remind you to check out our newest special edition items from our collaboration with Conductor. Grab a super soft tee for yourself, a family member, a teacher, or maybe all of the above. We've truly got something for everyone. Head over to Call Time Clothing today.
And we're back.
Okay, pivoting the conversation because we have a very important question that we want to ask you. Marcela, you mentioned that you were pregnant when you first started working at TGC, and I believe, Jess, that you are also a mother.
I have
Is
two
this true?
little ones.
Okay.
Yes.
Would you two talk about generally just being a mother in this field and how you balance that nurturing of your own children and also being nurturers and leaders in this other environment, and maybe also just give us some advice for those who are hoping to one day have a baby and do all the things.
Oof.
The amount of times we have talked about this just
Therapy.
so
We can talk for hours about that. And I think this is I am so glad that you're touching on this, because not every woman wants to be a mother or will be a mother, but those who are working mothers will know that it is challenging. And I have personally, Jess will definitely talk about her own journey and what has been difficult, but I think we both share this pool, from just wanting to be the best mother we can be and the best wife we could be, and a present mother, and what all the needs that motherhood requires of you, to this desire to be good at your work, at your job, and to, because we both have, I think, a very strong work ethic. We just are like, we cannot not do this well. So the constant pull of just two very important things, asking for attention and nurture. In my case, I feel like now that my kids are older now, they're 17 and 14. I feel like I wish I had a better mentorship when I was in that time, in regards of just letting me know that I needed to go home and be with my family, because I came in when the organization was not where it is right now, and I didn't have the support that it needed, and because I am so obsessive with what I do, I had a really hard time balancing it. And I had a husband who was extremely supportive, to a point where and this is not to blame him at all, but he was enabling me to, and he created even tension between us, but he at the same time was enabling me to like do what I needed to do, to to the point where we were sacrificing the time as a family, so it was just like this like crazy thing. Really, it's like insane, isn't it? It's like,
Marcela, I think my husband should probably meet my husband. Sorry, Brian.
Literally, meanwhile, I was like, Michael, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to like go to the football game with you on Saturday. Football's very important for him. And he was like, what? Really? He was like, but we do that. I was like, oh, okay, I'll move some things around.
So I think I felt younger when I was younger, that I just needed to do all the things. So I had this job, and I had a church job, and I had a community course. I had 3 jobs, and I was building the career, and I was having babies. And so I felt that I needed to do all the things. I think a lot of it was ego driven. It was just my ego, driving the conversation, like no question about it. And then I had this husband who was like, you go, why are you not here? You go, come home, like all of this, like pull in and pull, like getting me out and elevating me, but at the same time saying like, you are just absent. So I did not have, or maybe I'd had it, but it wasn't a strong model for me. There was not a strong model for me to tell me you need to get out of. Now I have. Now Jess is telling me to get out of the office. But I try to be really honest with Jessica about, you are not gonna do what I did, and also I think she has a better compass in terms of what she still has, the struggle and the pool and the confusion. But she has a partner that really requires her to really be a partner, and she has a better compass, like she has more of like, no, this is what my family needs, with all the struggle, but she will talk about that.
Well, and part of that comes from how supportive Marcela is and how supportive the organization has been in this phase of me having young children. So I have a 4.5-year-old and a 15-month-old. So I am in the thick of the little ones, which comes with different challenges than having older ones. Not necessarily any harder or easier, although it feels pretty hard right now. So I hope it doesn't get harder. But so I mean, I got to bring my son and my daughter to work for the first 6 months of their life. I had some maternity leave. And then when I came back, because a lot of my job at that point was like admin stuff during the day and then conducting in the evening. During the day, I could bring them. Marcella was like, they're tiny, just bring them. So, which is not the case everywhere, so I feel very grateful that was part of what was offered here at TGC. I was the first, besides after Marcela, I was the first pregnant lady here at TGC. So that kind of spurred TGC to come up with a family leave policy. We didn't have one before that, but Marcela was like, okay, we have to take care of you, which I mean will resonate with me forever, and I'm always forever grateful for. And as the kids have grown and as they're, I cannot bring either of them here, and I do not want to. We would not get anything done. But it's a huge pull, and I try really hard to frame it in the way of how fortunate am I that when I'm here at work, I love to be here at work, and when I'm at home, I love to be home. So I get to be fulfilled in two different ways. So the more I try to frame it like that, I mean, it doesn't fix everything because there are all those logistics. That's the hardest part, honestly. It's the logistics, and it's my sweet, sensitive 4.5-year-old boy who's like, Mama, come snuggle me. But I mean, my husband is a super present, wonderful father who I know, and I know Marcela's husband is the same way. So, and a really true partner who grounds me and who calls me on it when he's like, you said you would be home at this time and you were there way longer. Most of the time it's because Marcela and I got to talking. But even so, he'll call me on it, and but at the same time, he's like, let's just try to, just be honest of when you're going to be home, that kind of thing, so that we can work it out. But the logistics are hard. And I mean, I feel so grateful that I do have resources, that I have a wonderful supportive family who they take care of my kids when I'm sick and they're fine. They take care of my kids. So I really hope that's the case for other moms or people who are thinking about being moms, is like, find your people and don't be afraid to ask for help. And it is a phase. It is they're not going to be in preschool forever. They're eventually going to go to school. They're eventually going to become a little more independent. And TGC has just been so supportive of having that perspective too, I think, of like, okay, I was out like 3 days last week because my kids were sick. And I'm sure you can hear it in my voice too. But Marcella was like, well, let's figure it out, and so, and they've been very respectful and had that share the perspective of like, it is a phase, and like this the neediness of the young babies will pass, and then other things will come up that make it difficult.
Yeah, I think I would say that just like Jess, my husband has been a great source of groundness, even though it's at his expense many times, at the expense of me being with him as a family. But he is the first one to say, like, make sure that you're a good example for Jess. He's the first one to say that, because he knows what my tendencies are. So he's like, don't, make sure that you don't do that to her." which I would never. But I think he is really good at at also making sure that because I didn't have that role model, and he was such an enabler in a really good way to to elevate all of that, just to make sure that now that I look back, I wish I just didn't do all the things that I did. And I would have spent more time with my babies, because now they are like teenagers and they broke up with me. Not Elliot, my 14-year-old still wants to snuggle me. He will never listen to this podcast, so he still snuggles me. So he is not going to be embarrassed by this. But I think Jess is going through the harder right now. When they're little, they do require more of a mama time. So it is a real struggle. But I think like given having an understanding that last week she needed to be with her family. She needed to take care of her babies, and her husband also took time off. Like, I know they're like at the typical just family that is just like both of them are juggling jobs and responsibilities and having to be parents of small children. So she will have the morning off, and then he will take the afternoon off, and then they will swap. And then he had a day of concerts. He couldn't take the day off, obviously, because he had concerts. So just had to take more of the day. But then mom came in and saved the day. And we were like, you just work from home when you can, and if you cannot, then you cannot. And we will see what we need to do at the end of the day.
And now, a quick word from our sponsors.
Conductor, 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 conductor. Pavon Publishing is proud to feature outstanding women composers and conductors.
Composer Judith Harrington has created a prolific choral series for youth and treble choirs that includes Fireflies from Japan and Duérmete mi corazón from Brazil.
Shirley McRae has many outstanding arrangements for young choirs, including popular songs like Black Sheep, and Sakura.
Conductor Iris Levine maintains a treble chorus series of medium to advanced works with text by poets from Teasdale to Yeats.
Other composers and authors in the Pavon family circle include Zenaida Stewart-Robles, Catherine Rundis, and Martha Wall. Explore all of these fantastic composers at Pavon Publishing. And we're back.
And one other thing I want to add is, like, things are going to slip.
Yep.
Like, it's a lot. It is a lot to be. I've told Mars many times, like, sometimes I feel like I need to be two people in order to, like, be the best mom I can be and be the best director of operations I can be. But I am not. I am one person. So I have learned that things have slipped, and things are going to slip in both facets. So being kind to yourself and just staying grounded in what's really important. And everyone's journey is going to be different. And some people may decide that they want to take some really substantial time off, if that works for them. But also getting rid of that judgment of, like, oh my gosh, well, now this whole thing was added to my life and I'm not keeping up with the other thing, obviously. Like, that's just how it works. You can't add 100% and be 200% all the time. So being really kind with yourself and
give yourself some grace.
Yeah, which still working on.
I mean, what a gift to be a part of that community, and Marcela to say, well, yeah, we need to have a plan in place. And I'd say if you don't have that in place at work, I think Jess and Marcela also both touched about finding your community outside of work, because not all employees, I think, are quite as understanding. When we reflect, and when I think about, like, the end of my life, like, what do I hope for? I hope that I've impacted people with music. that's basically it. Like if I had to distill it down, and I think we all sometimes think about, oh, my career means this, versus really looking around us and thinking about what is a life success, and that I can still make amazing music and artistry and be a mom. I'm multifaceted. I'm more than one thing.
Yes.
Never one thing.
Yes.
And I think just thinking about that text, I did that piece last year, and that text still really resonates with me, that we can be multidimensional, and it's hard, and it means things might slip, but find yourself a team, because otherwise it's extra hard, I would imagine.
I was going to say too, it's just important to keep sharing. And I'm so glad you two were so excited and willing to tell us all of those things, because the more questions I ask and the more people I ask them to, like, the more encouraged I feel, and also the more reassured I feel that, like, life is just difficult, and we all have phases that are going to be more difficult than others. And I literally just talked to Dr. Quist about this last week, because she had to miss 2 days of school because of their son, because they're moving and they had a pipe break. And it's like all of the things are happening. And she was like, sometimes you just have to get it done, and you just have to say, I can't come today. And that's okay. And she talked about that pull of, she said, like, when I was first conducting and doing all of the all states and all the gigs, I said yes to everything, and I loved it. And I loved every second. And she was like, then I had my son, and I still said yes. And I felt sad that I wasn't with him. And that was another weekend gone. And that was really powerful to hear somebody who I respect and admire and, like, hope to become one day say that, because she was like, he's not going to be like this forever. Just like you said, Marcela, like, the days are numbered when they're little, and it can be such a battle to say, this is important, and this is my life, and this is what I do, and that's also part of my life. But you can have a pull in both directions, and it's healthy and normal. And it's also good to recognize, like, that's never going to stop. That's going to be there forever.
And I think what you're saying about, having to say yes to everything, Jess and I have talked about that, like now Jess is getting invited to conduct festivals, and because she is amazing and she's perfect. And she rightfully so, like, she's invited to do these things and be part of these panels. And there was one weekend when she was just like, it's going to be this and that and that. I said, Jess, you don't have to say yes to everything. It's not going to be the last thing. It's not going to be the last, because you say no to this one thing is going to stop the momentum. Like, just say no, and it's going to be okay. And then she got another invitation. It just, yes, to have just your compass, where you just know, you will know where you need to be. And it is a real pool. But at the end of the day, I'm telling you, those kids are growing up so fast, and you don't want to miss it.
And it's from I think I first heard it on, like, a Peloton ride or something, but it was like, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no.
And now, a quick word from our sponsors.
Conductor, 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 conductor. Hello, everyone. Jocelyn Hagan here. I just wanted to let you know that the Compose Like a Girl podcast has officially launched. Listen as I interview celebrated composers Sarah Kirkland Snyder, Chen Yi, Dale Trombor, Angelica Negron, Rina Esmail, and more. I'm also hard at work on the next batch of scores in the Compose Like a Girl choral series, distributed by Graphite Publishing. You can help me bring these new pieces to life. I'm always seeking choral ambassadors to perform these new works by emerging composers. If you're interested, please reach out to me, Jocelyn Hagan, via my website, jocelynhagan.com, or social media. I look forward to hearing from you.
Hello, this is Sandra Snow, Director of Choral Programs at Michigan State University and Artistic Director of Mirabai. Mirabai is partnering with the Denver Women's Chorus to present Storytellers, a workshop unlike any conference you've been to. For the first time, leaders in choral music education will partner with members of GALA, the Gay and Lesbian Association of Choruses, to bring a workshop that blends the experiences of musical activists and classroom trailblazers. The Storytellers Conference is designed to improve your rehearsal and ensemble leadership through sessions that promote inclusive pedagogy, cultural responsiveness, and a new lens through which to view the conductor's role. Featured guests will include composer and singer Moira Smiley, and all attendees will be able to see Mirabai in concert. Session presenters will include collegiate educators from across the country and gala chorus leaders who are working as community activists. When we come together to listen to one another's stories, we all grow. Storytellers, listen, connect, expand. To register, see storytellersdenver.org.
And we're back.
You have to decide what is happening in the bank account. Is it a deposit or is it a withdrawal? And how's the checking? Like, are we staying in a healthy spot, or are we just withdrawing these days and not putting into that account? And how does that look in all the scope of your life? So much wisdom. So much wisdom.
Not to mention too, like no can always be a thank you so much. I'd love to do this later.
I love it. Yes, it's my favorite. To say her name to somebody is my favorite thing to do. Jessica. She can do it.
And she should, because she's awesome. You're both awesome.
It's also become, we have this amazing staff. So now it's like, okay, now we have a whole, you want this or this, we have somebody who is an expert in that. And so we don't all have to be an expert in everything, you know, so we can just push it out to the whole team. And we
and not limit it to, you know, I think our profession, what is that, pigeonholed? Pigeonholed? Is that how you say it? Hold, like if you are in a community, so you just do you just are good with children, and like we are all prolific conductors, we can all do a lot of things. So when the recommendations come in, like I am not going to only recommend Jess for middle school or elementary school, because I know that she is prolific. Like she can do also other things. I know that Nikki is a tremendous educator and they can do all sorts of things. And same with Brandy, you know, just to, you know, to talk. Of course, we have our strengths. Of course we do. But we are also capable of doing much more than that, you know, than just middle school. I mean, even though there's nothing wrong with it, you know, it is like how lucky. Just as much better at middle school than I am, because she is with middle schoolers much more than I am. It's just because that's what she dwells in, but that doesn't mean that she cannot do other things really well as well.
Well, I think that everyone wants to come work at the Tucson Girls Course. Hopefully you all can continue to inspire in all the ways that you do. We know that you are multifaceted and making such an impact in so many ways. And maybe one day you can do some professional development for other organizations, because I think there's so much that we've learned from you today. Just saying, that could be awesome. But before we go, we have to ask you our fast 5. These are supposed to be rapid fire, but sometimes we need an extra second. And so we'll alternate. Each of you will answer each of you will answer every question. And we're going to start out with, what is a favorite choral octavo or composer that comes to mind right now?
I don't have an octavo or composer, but I have like a resource for music. I have been all about, for my K1s, I've been all about singing not from octavos, or because they're kindergarteners. And also that has gone into my middle school group as well. Like there is so much music out there that is not like an official JW Pepper, no shame on that, but there's so much out there. So there's a resource called thebirdsings.com, and there's also waldorfschoolsongs.org. I think it's .org, and they are free resources. It gives instructions for how you can give credit appropriately to the composers, and it's mostly free, and it's just a wealth of music that is not yet put into an octavo form, but that can be molded into what you need it to be for your singers. So that is my favorite right now.
It's going on the website.
Well, I don't have like a one favorite, but I'm all about, and not because they are women, but women composers that are just adding so much to the body of work. So, Abby Bettines has always been a part of in my programming, and Katerina Guimon and Jocelyn Hagen and Bryn, all of the goodness, B. Boykin. So I'm just drawn to their music, and every semester I, not even because they happen to be women, they just are great composers. So it just permeates our programming at all levels, because they just add so much to the repertoire.
Absolutely. Look for many of those people on our podcast. Maybe all of them eventually. All right, question number 2. What is one misconception about each of you?
I think what Marcela touched on earlier, which is like, oh, you teach kids. Cool. So you didn't want to go get your doctorate? Why didn't you do that? Or, oh, you don't have your doctorate. Ah, got it. That kind of thing. And it's like, can we get rid of that, please? If you have a doctorate, amazing. If you don't have a doctorate, amazing. Just do good work. And that has been a little the main frustration that I have felt sometimes is like, oh, the bees are so cute, which they are so cute. I will not deny that. But that is not all they are. They can compose, they can have deep artistry, age appropriately. They are not going to sing in 4 parts because they shouldn't. They're 5 years old. But if they can do phrasing like nobody's business, and they can write their own music. So that's a misconception I feel about me and just people in general sometimes, and about the younger ones as well.
Yeah, I would say the same. I think, we'll be for the opposite reasons. I remember going to one of those conferences, ACDA conferences, and I had a friend of mine who had done his doctorate, and he somehow assumed that I had not finished my degree because I was here. I was like, oh, you finished? Oh, kind of like shocking. I have gotten rid of all of those. Thank goodness. Like, I do not care. I feel extremely proud of where I am and who I am. I'm almost 50 years old. This is like the best ever. So, but I think, misconception that if you are teaching youth, that somehow either you didn't make it, or your music making is so much less artistically fulfilling or deep, when these young musicians are doing such wonderful things at such deep level, that which is just those are the people who are feeding those programs. So it just takes a lot of skill and patience, and all the work that we all do. So I would just echo what Jess was making a point for. Yeah.
And these are all systems that are perpetuated by many in our field. So let's help each other understand that these hierarchies don't exist. And let's just be good people and make good music. So do better. Amen. So, what is one word to describe you as a conductor or conductor/teacher?
The word that came to mind for me is how I am with the Mariposas, which I am a weirdo. I am a middle schooler at heart, which is why I resonate so much with them, and which is why we just have so much fun. So yeah, I am pretty weird.
For Jess, I would say she's fearless. She comes into the rehearsal space with a lot of courage to try things that may not work out. But she just goes in, and she comes back always with really insightful observations of her own teaching and her experience in the classroom. So she will be like, I tried that and that didn't work. Or I tried that. Oh my gosh, look at the magic that happened. This was really, really successful. And many, many times I have come up with ideas, and she like does them the next day. I just say an idea, and she just goes and does it. And it becomes super successful. And I still don't have not done them, but she does. And I'm like, good for you, Jessica. So fearless for Jess.
What about your word for you, Marcela?
For me, I would say free. I feel like I am very free in my own gesture. I don't stick with patterns all the time. So in terms of technique, like as a technician, I feel very much like free of the limit that maybe patterns come to play with. And then I'm free in my music making, in terms of I'm just super open, just like the same way that I've been with you here. I am just very open with my singers about my fears or my or opening the space for like true conversation to happen and to be shared.
It's hard to find one word for this, but I've always been inspired by how Marcela just pulls all of the potential out of these girls. You hear them sing, and it's hard to hear something wrong with it, something to fix. But she just they can always do even better, and she does it in such an encouraging way that empowers these girls to make the best sounds, to make sounds that you wouldn't believe that these high school girls are singing. So, and it's without question. And I tell her, and she's like, yeah, that's what we do. That's what they do. So she just pulls it out of them, and I'm always in awe of that.
Those are such great answers. All right, question number 4, you two. What is a choral blooper that you have experienced? Maybe something that went wrong.
Can I talk about poop?
Always talk about poop.
So this is obviously a bumblebee. You know, if you've worked with little ones before, you know that they will just say anything. So this is one of those stories. We were rehearsing, and one of my girls, she had told me at the beginning, she's like, I have a little bit of a stomach ache. It's like, oh, okay, just do whatever your best is today. And so at one point she raised her hand, and I was like, what's your question? She's like, you know, it's not a question, but sometimes when I fart, some poop comes out. My pianist, who is also our colleague and a wonderful friend, was behind the piano, just like losing it. Marcela was in the room, I think, also losing it. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm so sorry. That happens to us sometimes. Do you need to go to the bathroom? She's like, no. Like, all right, let's keep moving on. 2 of them afterwards, like, how did you respond in that way? Not devolve the whole rehearsal. So that's my choir blooper.
Gosh, I don't know besides like something really inappropriate.
No, you said we've had like penis on the show. I have an anus story. Like, just go for it.
Yeah, this is terrible.
Whatever it is.
This is terrible. So I am doing regionals. This is my first year doing regionals. And I wanted to give a visual of what I wanted their vocal track to look like. So I'm just like, these are the halls.
On a whiteboard. She's drawing.
Whiteboard. I'm like, these are the hallway. You know, so these are your cheeks. This is the tongue, right? It needs to be your floor. And this is the dome, which is what is.
And the sound comes out.
And the sound comes out of the dome. I am like totally, and I'm a terrible artist. Like it really looked like a private part. So I'm just like, and then all the kids, of course, starting
They were
dying. They were like, you know, trying to like
They
keep
were
it.
trying to be respectful.
They're trying to be respectful because I was so serious. And then I looked at them. Jess is like about to explode.
I was playing piano.
And then I'm like, I turn around and I look at what I just draw. And of course, I was like, oh my gosh, you people are so horrible. And of course, it was on me. But
oh my god,
yeah. Penis draws.
I mean, everything that we're doing in the body looks very phallic. You show a scope of your own vocal folds, and like, wow, what a day you're gonna have with your students at any age level. So, deep anatomical territory.
Our final question takes it in a different direction, just to close it out. And it's just, would each of you share maybe one? We talked about at the beginning, those moments, those musical moments that are so life-changing. So a favorite choral memory. It can be of your own with one of your groups, but a favorite choral memory.
Oh, I can't do two. I think I can do a couple. I had the fortune to sing at Westminster Choir College, and coming from Colombia and being suddenly in Lincoln Center, or in those places where we sang with the New York Phil, coming from where I came from, it was just like surreal, and to having those experience, I remember really like being really intentional about, like, I just want to remember this for the rest of my life, and I do, and I'm Dory from Finding Nemo. I forget everything. So I just like just those profound sounds of being, like what we all have felt, that it has kept us in this profession, when we sing, and it's just like you are just so submerged by the sound and the harmony, and it just like swallows you in. I that would be, what has transformed me. And at the same time, I have wanted, in preparation of those choir performances with Dr. Flommerfeld, I recall him being really like intentional about just looking into my eyes, and it wasn't my eyes; it was the eyes of the people that were in front of him, and just like I could just see through his soul, and I remember just sometimes like tearing up in rehearsal because it was just so powerful, just his energy and how intentional he was about the musical phrase and just pulling the phrase out of what I felt it was me, but it was obviously we were 100 and something people in that choir. And then I've tried to because I experienced that with such profoundness, I've tried to do that with my singers, and I recall moments where I have stopped conducting completely. I remember in his classes, Flammerfeld would be like, stop conducting, like just drop your hands and see what happens, because he wanted to make a point about trust. And doing that with my own singers, of course, it has taken years to build that, and throughout the year to be able to do that. It all usually happens on tour, just to drop complete gesture and let me be swallowed by their sound, literally, or hugged or developed by their sound. It has been profoundly transformative for me as their conductor and for them as their singers, because they feel like, they are just they're really driving they are driving the boat, and I'm just there to watch them just fly. So those two instances have been really, really magical for me.
For me, it was the moment, or a series of moments, when the Mariposas, the middle school group that I conduct, performed a song that they composed as a group. So it was one of those things where it was Marcela's idea. It was like, it was coming out of COVID, and so it was like, we got to get these girls engaged in a way that it's different now, right? We got to get them engaged. So let's do a composition track. And so I started it during COVID, and then I learned much more about how to do it well. And then that spring of, I think it was 2021 or 2022. Yeah, 2022, we had an outdoor concert. That whole semester, the Mariposas wrote a song as a group, and it was fully theirs. And we presented it on stage equal to B.E. Boykin's Music of Life and Alberto Grau's Octo de Arbol. We performed it in the middle of that set. So it was elevated to the same level as these professional composers, and the pride that was on their faces, and the just this ownership and agency that they had. And I mean, it has made such a difference in these girls to see that, like, they can do it, and this isn't just for some person off somewhere else, this is like, we're doing this. And that was such, I didn't expect it to be that deeply moving for the girls and for me, but it was just so cool. I think that's part of why it was so cool, because I didn't expect it to be that powerful.
And we recorded it, and now Jess has it. She has it for the rest of her life as something that, and the girls. And when we were doing the move ups to the following choir, we always ask, like, what was your favorite time of, what was your favorite thing this year, and what did you struggle with? And all of them, it was their composition, and it was something that just facilitated, and it was just so very powerful.
Wow, that is incredible. Yeah, that's amazing. And what an experience that they will remember for the rest of their lives as well. So that is really beautiful.
I think I can speak for both Kira and I and say that we just feel so grateful for time well spent with both of you, and that our listeners, I know, will walk away with so many things to implement tomorrow, and also so many things to think about in the long term about leadership and perspective and choral philosophy. And it's just been so lovely to spend some time with both of you. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for opening this space for all of us women conductors. It is just really refreshing to see a really cultivated space for our voices, because I think we have a really particular perspective on how this works, and very, very different experience than our colleagues. So thank you for opening the space for us, and definitely for having Jess and I share this time with you. We are just very grateful.
Yes, and it's so wonderful to see everything that you both are doing. McKenna, I know you just personally a little better, so I just feel so proud of you as my colleague and someone who, we've known each other for a while now and in different capacities. So just congratulations on such a job well done, and lifting all these women up, and with your sister. So just
lucky.
So cool.
So cool.
Yeah, I'm so proud to know you and to say we have some history.
And I'm getting to meet Marcela a few years ago at the ACD event in Arizona for youth and children, because in my doctorate, I worked with the children's choir on Sunday afternoons, pre-K through 5th grade, and I survived and thrived even a little bit in some of those moments. But I learned so much from that conference and from speaking with both of you. But we are Conduct Her, and we hope that you check us out on our social media platforms and our website, www.conducther.com. And we look forward to more time with you all soon.
Thank you for listening. This has been Conduct Her.
This episode was engineered and mixed by Mary Hannah Klontz, with intro and outro music by Jonathan Martin and ad music by Kate Krellin.
Discover more resources at conducther.com.